Hello, Dennis Bulldogs. So today I thought that we would do something a little bit different, just kind of take a break from all of the things that we've been talking about. I hope that the automatic negative thoughts are still in your mind, but I wanted to take a chance to, or take a moment to read from this Chicken Soup for the Kids Soul book. I was just kind of looking through it because I'm thinking of some things we can do for Bullying Prevention Month, which is next month in October. And I came across this story and I really enjoyed it, and I thought that you might too. And I'll just kind of challenge you with a question to think about the story at the end. And please feel free to message me if you want to kind of answer that question or just something to think about. This is just to get you thinking about the topic of the story. And so I will go ahead and get started. I also wanted to mention that I was going to talk more about coping skills, but that's something that I actually did videos on during quarantine, during that time where we were off school. So what I'll do is I'll link some of those videos, and you can search on my YouTube page. I really need to make some playlists on there for specific topics, but that way you can look into those and see, because I don't really want to repeat myself. But of course, like I mentioned, I would be happy to do a Google Meet, and that's something I still have in the works, and I'm creating a form so everyone can fill it out if that's something they're interested in. So with that being said, let me take a sip of my water. And get started. This story is only a couple pages long, so I don't want you to feel overwhelmed. I know sometimes listening to other people read is relaxing, and I know for some of us it's hard to do, so I tried to pick a short one. All right, so the quote is, "Anyone who stops learning is old, whether at 20 or 80. Anyone who keeps learning stays young. The greatest thing in life is to keep your mind young." And the story's title is Grandfather Learns to Read. Joey sat at the kitchen table reading the sports page of the morning paper. He heard his grandfather coming down the stairs. When his grandfather came into the kitchen, Joey could see he was not his usual happy self. "Morning, Grandfather," he said. His grandfather sat across the table looking glum. He didn't pick up the paper to read. Instead, he asked, "Joey, is anything happening in town today?" "There's a ball game between Doraville Middle School and my school tonight," Joey told him. "It'll be a close race, but I think we'll win. Would you like to go?" Joey felt bad for his grandfather. He knew he couldn't read. His grandfather had told him often, "I didn't have the chance to go to school regularly. Looking after the animals and tending to the crops on the farm were much more important in those days than learning to read." Joey always listened carefully when his grandfather told him how proud he was to have lived on a farm. He told him about caring for the animals. He described trips to the market to sell produce from the farm. Joey could see how rough and calloused his grandfather's hands were. He spoke proudly to Joey about working from sunrise to sunset. Joey noticed how sad his grandfather's face looked when he remarked, "I would have liked to have gone to school more often, but there wasn't much time." One day, Grandfather asked Joey, "Joey, would you go to the grocery store with me? I need several things." In the store, Joey's grandfather walked up and down the aisles looking at the pictures on the cans. He saw a can without a picture on it. "What's in that can?" he asked. Joey, reading the label, said, "It's a can of chicken soup." His grandfather walked to the meat counter, but he couldn't read the prices or the labels. Finally, Grandfather gave Joey the grocery list and stomped out of the store. "I'll meet you in the car," he said. Joey watched him go through the door, and he thought, "I wish I could help him out. But I wouldn't even know where to begin. I wouldn't have any idea how to start." The next day was Sunday. Joey and his grandfather always took a walk into town on that day to attend church. Joey stopped at the library to look through books while his grandfather went down the street to talk with old friends. He was unhappy because he knew his grandfather couldn't even read the street signs. Going into the library, Joey saw a sign on the library wall. It read, "Do you know someone who doesn't know how to read? We can help. Just call this number." When his grandfather returned to the library, Joey showed the sign to him. "Somebody can teach you how to read. It says so right here," Joey explained. Joey jotted the number down, and they hurried home. Several days later, Grandfather put on his best suit of clothes for his first day of school. He arrived at the library an hour early and met with his teacher. During that first class, he was so worried and nervous that he couldn't concentrate. He couldn't remember anything the teacher said. A few weeks later, Grandfather was studying when he looked up at Joey and said, "I am too old to learn all of this." He closed the book in frustration. "Oh, Grandfather, don't get discouraged," Joey said. Grandfather was stubborn. "I can't do it," he said. "How about letting me help you?" Joey asked. Grandfather didn't want to seem ungrateful, so he said, "Thanks, Joey. I'm sure that would be a big help." They studied together and worked hard on Grandfather's lessons every day. Joey took over all the chores to give his grandfather more time to study. He told his grandfather he could study in his room where it would be quieter and the phone wouldn't interrupt him. Months later, his grandfather called Joey into his room. "Joey," he said, "I just got a letter from Aunt Helen. Let me read it to you." As Grandfather read, he pronounced each word very slowly, and tears came to his eyes. When Joey's grandfather had finished reading the letter, Joey was crying too. He was so proud of his grandfather for overcoming a lifelong obstacle that his chest felt as though it might burst with joy. Grandfather looked up from the page and locked his tear-filled eyes with Joey's. "Grandfather," said Joey, smiling, "great job. I'm so proud of you." Grandfather smiled back and then broke into a grin so big, so wide, that Joey knew Grandfather was proud of himself too. So I hope that brought a little bit of joy to your day. I just want you to think about whenever, we're in middle school and we're at that age and we're still considered kids or teenagers, we sometimes feel like we don't have the power to change the world or to change things around us. And it is true. I mean, even for adults, there are times where we can't change. There are certain things we can't change, but a lot of times there's ways for us to help. So Joey helped his grandfather in a huge way. Like once he learns to read, it'll completely change his grandfather's world. So my question is to you, is there something that you feel like you can do in your life to help change the lives of people around you, or something that you feel passionate about that you want to help? And I just want you to know that even at your age, you can still do things that help. I'm sure a lot of you don't realize, but you really change the lives of the adults at school. We love seeing you, and the things you say mean a lot to us, and our relationships with you mean a lot to us. So just try to think of a way that you can change the life of somebody around you. It doesn't have to be as big as teaching someone to read or getting them the resources to learn to read, but what's something that maybe you could do to help make the lives of others a little bit easier or better. So I hope that you have a fantastic day, and I will be back tomorrow with another video. See ya.